Let's get to it. Number 1. What is the science of classifying or grouping living things? Yes, ma'am.
Classification.
Nope.
It's not?
It's a vocab word. Yes, ma'am.
English.
Nope. Go ahead. Taxonomy.
Oh.
What?
I thought it was just going to be.
Classification is a process. Taxonomy, onomy, otany, ology, those are studies of. So taxonomy is the study of or science of classifying living
Where can
things.
we find the vocabulary words at? Where can we find the vocabulary words?
They were what we did last class in our notes.
Oh.
So we're on blue sheet now. We're reviewing what our vocab was last time. All right, number 2. Who is the father of taxonomy? Yes, sir. Linnaeus. Carl von Linn changed his name to Carolus Linnaeus. He was such a geek about classifying things in, well, a particular language. All right, number 3. Blank blank is Linnaeus's two-name naming system. What word means to name, and then the other word is naming system?
What language is that?
English.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
Binomial nomenclature?
Nomenclature. Binomial, to name, naming system. That's a system he came up with. Binomial nomenclature. Okay? All right, so what language did he use? So it was universal and everybody understood it. Latin. Because at the time it didn't matter what language you normally spoke, everybody learned Latin as well as a second language. So everybody understood it was universal. Okay, so he talked about binomial nomenclature using two names. Now he had a lot of levels, but which 2 levels did he use for the binomial name? What two words did he use?
Genus and species.
Good. Genus
Oh,
and species. Now remember, when you're writing the genus and species name, the scientific name, genus is capitalized, species is not. If you're handwriting it, you underline it. If you're typing it, it's italicized. Make sure you know how to write it properly or identify
Wait, you said which word is capitalized?
genus.
Okay.
See, it's capitalized.
Yeah.
Species is not.
Okay.
All right. Many species have what kind of names in different regions of the country? For example, we saw that cat. We all have different kinds of names for it. What kind of names are those? They're not scientific. They're called common names. Like, remember that cat that we saw a picture of? And we didn't know if it was a puma, a cougar, mountain lion, bobcat, right? So we had to get away from using common names. We had to come up with some scientific way of naming things, and that's where Linnaeus came in. Yes?
Sorry, I'm assuming not every scientific name follows the genus-species formula.
Yes, it does.
All of them?
Everything. Every living thing that's been identified has a genus and species name, if it's a species. Now, for example, a mule is not a species. We'll talk about that later.
Is Virginia like an example?
Sure.
That I didn't think was.
Sure.
If I were to, the scientific name of Linnemoth is Atticus luna, which belongs in the genus of and that's not present anywhere in the name. I'm just wondering how that works.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look that one up, quite honestly. Well, maybe you and I can look that up together.
No,
Okay.
I got it.
All right, so Linnaeus originally had 2 kingdoms. What were the 2 kingdoms that we started with? We're now up to 6, by the way. What were the 2 original kingdoms?
Kingdom and
No,
something,
what
something.
2 kingdoms did we have?
Oh, the square thing
Nope.
or the rectangle.
What are we?
Humans.
What kingdom are we in?
The mammals.
No, that is not our kingdom.
Let me see.
No, that's.
Utopia.
I'm recording. Okay.
Family.
Nope. What 2 kingdoms are there? What were the only 2 kingdoms that people could see without a microscope back when he was doing this? Animals and plants. Plantae, or plants and animals, were the only 2 kingdoms that Linnaeus knew about. Because we didn't have microscopes yet to see anything else.
Did we write correct? That's the
Yes,
last
well, you
class?
can say plants and animals or plantae animalia is the actual Latin
It means
version
the
of
same
that.
thing.
Okay, so those are the only two kingdoms. We're now up to 6. We'll talk about that next week, or Friday actually. So Linnea said, how many levels of categories? How many levels do you have? Yep,
7.
7. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Okay, that's one of our magic numbers. We're going to talk about other magic numbers on Friday. Number 8, an organism that can reproduce and produce fertile offspring is called a what?
Offspring.
No. Mentioned this before. We're seeing it now. We'll see it again in evolution.
You see it like
And we'll see it again in ecology. If 2 organisms are close enough that they can reproduce and make fertile offspring, they are members of the same what?
organization.
No. They're members of the same what?
Oh,
Species.
Got it.
Otherwise, they can't reproduce, or what they produce is not fertile. So members of the same species can reproduce and make offspring that can do the same. We're going to see that word many, many more times. Now, the category phylum, does it have more classes or does it have more kingdoms? Think about it, the boxes that we were talking about. So if you have a phylum box and you open it up, what boxes are inside of it?
Smaller.
What's the smaller ones? What's below phylum?
The
Is it class or kingdom that's below
Class.
phylum? Class. So phylum box has class boxes inside of it. Now we started off the lesson last time with 4 reasons why we need to classify. And right off the bat, we have so many different species of things we need to organize them. So the first reason why we classify is it organizes living things.
easier to study.
Let's write down organize things first.
Oh.
So yes, like Ray said, if once we organize things, it makes them easier to study different groups. And once all these groups are studied, we can start looking at what between them?
Relationship.
Their relationships. We can start explaining relationships. We're gonna have a lab class, a lab activity in a minute, so can you wait until give me 5 minutes and then, yeah. It's really important to stay in class while I'm lecturing and teaching you information.
Universal.
And then we also, to get rid of that whole common idea that everybody, what name do you have it? I don't know. Everybody uses the same name and it's in Latin, so everybody understands it to this day. So it's a universal system. Okay? So if taxonomy is the study of classifying or naming things or grouping things or putting things into group, what do we call those groups or those levels? It's a study of grouping, so one group is,
A taxon.
a taxon. So the level or group that we put things in is the taxon. We talked about that last class. All right, think about this one. Number 12. Canis familiaris, notice how these names are typed in italics. Canis familiaris, Canis latrans, and Canis lupus are all in the same what?
Canis.
Genus. Their genus name. The first name is the genus name, and they all have the same first name. They all share the same genus. All right. So now, what I need you guys to do is turn to page 4 and 5. All right. So what we're going to do today, actually I lied. 4 and 5 is our lab today. I have one word, vocabulary word. We got to define what this thing called a dichotomous key is. So I lied. Look at, all right, vocab. One vocab word. One vocab word today. So I'm going to present it to you. I'll make this a little bit bigger. Okay. So I'm sorry. Don't turn to page 4. Go back a page. I need to define this, and I need you to see this picture because we're going to practice. I'm going to show you how to use one of these things. Then in the lab today, you're individually going to practice using one to identify some leaves.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the lab, you're going to get with somebody else to create a dichotomous key. So there's 3 things. I've got to teach you what a dichotomous key is, show you how to use it. You're going to practice using one of your own to identify things. And then you're gonna create one with a lap partner. So, dichotomous key. Remember back when we were trying to do that classification thing with all the animals, I said one of my rules is you can't have has it, doesn't have it, or have opposites. That's because that's what a dichotomous key basically is. Di means two. So a dichotomous key obviously is going to have two in the definition. It's a tool. So at the very least, let's write that it's a tool that's going to help us identify an organism. So a tool to identify an organism. And every step has two choices. That's where the die comes in. And every step has two choices. Every step has two choices. So you'll notice it's 1AB, 2AB, 3AB, etc. So far, so good? So you know, like a field guide, if you've ever gone camping or if you've ever been in scouts, you have a field guide and you want to identify like a flower, a wildflower that's out there, or you see a snake and you want to make sure it's not poisonous. You have a field guide that's going to walk you through 2 steps to identify and narrow it down to what exactly that thing is. So let's practice with this. What bird do you want me to, let's identify?
The first one.
Okay, bird W, all right? So you always start at the first. Step number 1. By the way, this is kind of like a make your own adventure. Did you have this when you were a kid, those books where you get to the bottom of a page and you have to make a choice? Go to this page or that page, right? That's kind of what this is like. So if we're looking at bird W, if you can't see up here on the board, just look along in your own pictures. 1A says, the beak is relatively long and slender, or the beak is relatively stout and heavy. Is that beak long and slender, or is it stout and heavy?
Long.
It's stout and heavy. So what does it say to do? Go to 2, right? Let's see what 2 says. 2A says the bottom of the surface of the lower beak is flat and straight, or is the bottom surface of the lower beak curved? Is it flat and straight, or is it curved?
Flat and straight.
Flat and straight. So apparently, bird W is this geospiza thing. I've identified it. Okay? Let's try another one. How about do Y? Let's do Y. So I've identified Y. Where do I start? Start at number 1 again. So looking at bird Y, the beak is long and slender, or it's stout and heavy?
It's long and slender.
It's kind of slender, so I would say it's long and slender. It's this one. All right, one more. Pick one more. Either X or Z. Which one do you want to do?
X.
X. Okay, so bird X. Again, where do we start? Step number 1. Beak is long and slender, or is it stout and heavy?
Heavy.
Stout and heavy. So we go where?
2.
Go to 2. Now it says the bottom surface of the lower beak is flat and straight, or is it curved?
Curved.
It's curved. So now where do we go?
3.
We got to go to step number 3. Step number 3 says the lower edge of the it's 3A, the lower edge of the upper beak has a distinct bend, or the lower edge of the beak is mostly flat?
Neither.
The lower edge of the upper
first
beak.
one, A.
Okay, it's flat, so that's your answer. So that's what you do. Every time you come up with a new one, like you're going to be doing leaves. You're going to be doing leaves, dichotomous key. So does everybody understand the idea of a dichotomous key and how to use it? So here's what we're going to do. The very first thing, now listen to the directions. I've got about 5 minutes worth of directions, and I need you focused up here, because if you're on your phones, you're going to have absolutely no idea what we're doing. Emil. The first thing you're going to do is, everybody individually, are you listening to me? Please listen up. Everybody individually has to be able to do or use the dichotomous key themselves. So everybody, the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to identify, look up here please. You're going to identify these leaves, A through H. Ignore the D in the box, it shouldn't be there. Your dichotomous key is here off to the side. Start with A. Work yourself down until you identify what A is, and then you're going to write the name here in the box that says A. Then you're going to go back and do B, and keep going, start up again. Step number 1, until you've identified all the leaves. Now, before you do that, let me clarify let me go through these steps, 1 through 7, to make sure everybody understands what it's referring to. I think 1A and B, I think everybody knows what needles versus non-needles means, right? 2A says the needles are clustered. Clustered would be like if they're in a group versus singlets where they're all kind of spread out. Okay? Number 3. Now it's up on the board because it's actually a vocabulary word. 3A says simple leaf. So a simple leaf has one leaflet like this, like I've drawn up here on the board. Please look up here. Versus compound, where it says multiple leaflets. So something that has a lot of little leaves to it would be a compound leaf. Okay?
Also,
Nope. Smooth edge, jagged edge. I think if you're looking at the edge of a leaf, you can tell whether it's smooth or jagged. Now, the difference between that and 5 says the leaf edge is smooth, so all like one surface, or if it's lobed, it kind of does one of these numbers. That's what lobed looks like. All right, 6A, leaf edge is smooth and tooth-like versus large and thorny. I think we know the difference of that. Leaflets are attached at one point, like at one point, or they are attached at multiple points. Okay? So once you've identified, listen up, you personally have identified A through H on the back, hold on to this. You got 2 pages to turn in today. This is the first page that you're doing individually. Now, you see what it says on page 5? Page 5, these go together. You're going to be stapling them together at the end of class today. Page 5 says, now, find a partner and make your own dichotomous key using the school supplies that you'll come up and get in this bag. That I will give you. Check to make sure it's correct. So once you have your key done, and I'm going to demonstrate how you're going to work on this. Once you have or think you have your key done, raise your hand and either Mr. Boz or I will come over and make sure that it works. If it doesn't work, you need to fix it. If it does work, you can turn it in. Everybody, both partners need to have a copy because you're turning both of these pages in at the end of the class today. All right? So, let me demonstrate how you're going to design a key. Please listen up. I'm going to teach you what you need to do, and then you have the rest of the class period to get both of these pages done. All right? So, first things first. I have in front here 6 items, right? How many steps do I need? Do I need 6? No, I only need 5. Why? Because the last one's going to identify the last 2. So, when you get your bag, count how many items you have, and that's how many steps you're going to need. 1AB, 2AB, 3AB, 4AB, all the way down to how many you need. Does that make sense? So the first thing you're going to write on your sheet is 1AB, 2AB, 3AB, etc. Got it? Mm-hmm. I'm going to do this one with you to demonstrate. We're going to work on one together, and then you know how to make your own with a partner. All right, so let's take a look at these. I have 6 items, so here's my 1 through 5 steps. All right, y'all tell me, somebody volunteer, how can I separate these out into 2 groups? What would be an appropriate way to separate these out into 2 groups? I on purpose made 3 different, nope, because there's 3 different colors. Sorry, nope. Shape, what about the shape? Well, there's different kinds of rectangles, I suppose.
The length.
Length? Straight. Okay, so which one do we want to go with? Long and straight? Okay, well, no. You can't identify it yet. You can't identify it right off the bat. You want to do long and straight first? Okay, so I'm assuming we're talking about these 3. So I'm going to move these guys out the way because we're going to deal with them later. All right, so we have long and straight. So on my sheet, I would write, if long and straight, I need to send myself someplace. Those of you who are listening at home to this, I'm sorry, I'm writing this on the board. Go to, say 2. Okay? So, go to 2. All right, so 2A and B. How would we separate these guys out now?
Color.
Nope, there's 3 different colors. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical this time. It can be something that they do or something that they have. Yep.
If used to write, go
Okay.
to whatever one.
Okay. If I can write with it, so I'm going to 2, right? So I've got to go to 2. If it writes, go to 3. If it doesn't write, what is it? I've identified it. What is it? A ruler. All right, so I'm going to move this off the way. So if it doesn't write,
It's a ruler.
So now, if it writes, go to 3. So how would I separate these guys out?
If it's a, oh wait,
If
if
it's
it
a
has an
marker or
eraser
not.
attached,
If it has a what?
an eraser.
If it's permanent,
Oh, okay. Well, I've heard a couple. I heard eraser first. If it has an eraser, it's a pencil. If it doesn't have an eraser, it's an expo, right? So 3A has eraser. It's a pencil. I've identified it.
graphite.
No eraser. It's an expo. See what I've done so far? All right. So if long and straight go to 2, if short, short and square, or short, whatever. I'm just trying to make this quick. All right, what step are we up to now? 4. Okay. Go to 4. All right. 4AB. How can I separate these 3 out?
Has text.
What?
You can read.
Somebody said something. What?
What?
Has text on it.
Okay. Has writing.
That's a good.
That's a good one. If it has writing, it's a what? It's an eraser
Or a book?
that we can see here.
Oh.
Okay. If no writing on it, go to, what's our last step? 5. All right, great. So then, how would we separate these two?
If
You
it's
can do it by
yellow.
color.
Okay, I heard yellow and green. If yellow, it is stapler. Now, I'm not done yet. If it's green, it's a book. At this point, you are going to call me or Dr. or Ms. Shabazz over, and we'll check it. So let's check this. Pretend that it's me, and we're going to check all these things. Make sure it works. All right? So I come over and say, okay, so if long and straight, go to 2. All right, so these guys are long and straight. And you're like, yeah, it works. All right, go to 2. If it writes, go to 3. If it doesn't write, ruler. Check. Right? Okay, so they write. If it writes, I go to 3. If it has an eraser, it's a pencil. If it doesn't, it's an expo. That works.
Nah, this is wrong.
Now, go back to if short, go to 4. If it has writing on it, it's an eraser. I identify that. If it has no writing, go to 5. All right, so I'm going to go to 5. If yellow, it's a stapler. If it's green, it's a book. It works.
Nah, that's too
All right, so you see how that works?
Yeah.
So first thing you're going to do is at your desk, and I will put this back up here on the board. At your desk, you're going to identify leaves A through H on the back. Once you've done that, you're going to grab your other sheet, which you're going to staple together today, and find somebody else that's done, and come up to me and I'll give you your baggie. Set up your dichotomous key. When you're done, have Ms. Shabazz or I come around and check you. If it works, you can turn it in. If it doesn't work, you're going to need to fix it. Once both sheets are done, you're going to staple both and bring them up front. Okay?